Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I've got a really cute card today that uses circle punches and a focal point for a greeting from a promotional product here in March, and it's called More Than Words. Here's the card we're going to be creating together today. I'll be giving you some tips along the way about creating those layers, especially with the vellum. If you're here from YouTube, you'll be able to find a link down in the video description below, which will navigate you over to the pictures and the cutting dimensions for today's project. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started on today's card. Here's a good close-up of the card we're going to be creating today. It's really sharp, isn't it? Very, very simple, but we're going to be using some dies as well as some circle punches. One of my favorite new die collections is the Rectangle Stitched Framelits. That stitched look is really popular right now, and these graduated sizes and all different shapes of rectangles are surely going to be a great addition to your stamp room. I've pulled out the largest stitched die from that series, and I've got a piece of crumb cake cardstock, and we're going to die cut this. I've got my big shot here with my magnetic platform. That is my platform of choice when I'm using these metal dies. It will help hold them in place. I'm going to place a clear cutting mat on the bottom to protect that platform. And I've got my cardstock and my die, and then I'll place another clear mat over the top to protect it, and then we'll crank that through. Now, depending on your big shot and how tight those rollers are here, you may have to crank it there and crank it back. I know I have to crank it twice. And then that's going to leave us with this stitched insert here that we're going to use for the layer on our card. The other great thing about these dies is look at this amazing stitched frame that you get left over. Also great for another card or even for scrapbooking. While I have my big shot out, I'm going to do some more die cutting. I've got a scrap piece of Whisper White cardstock here, and I've pulled out this leaf image, and I'll place that on top. That die comes from the Bouquet Bunch of Framelits. I'm really loving this. There's lots of great pieces in here, and it coordinates with the beautiful bouquet stamp set. Those products can be found in the annual catalog. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you're interested in receiving a complimentary copy of the current catalogs, I would be more than happy to send them to you. Just leave me a comment below, and I'll be certain to include copies of the current sale brochures as well. The products in the sale brochures are absolutely free with any $50 product purchase. And for those of you with a larger wish list, there are even items redeemable in the $100 category. Stampin' Up's largest sale of the year goes through March 31st, 2019. I already have my clear mat on the bottom from the previous die, and I'll put the other clear mat on the top, and we'll crank this one through as well. I'm going to use my Take Your Pick pickup tool in addition to the putty tip that's wonderful here for picking up sequins and small pieces of paper. There's an interchangeable tip on the end here that has a paper piercing tool. The other end of this is simply dialable and it's removable, and that spatula helps me to remove my mistakes from adhesive and dimensionals. With this tool, you also receive a dual-sided stylus tool, which is great for scoring. I'm just going to use that paper piercing tool to help just give me a little start here on removing that die cut image from the framelit. I've got my 2-inch circle punch here, and we're going to do some punching. I've got a piece of vellum cardstock, and I also have a piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock. Now, the one thing about vellum cardstock is it does not punch well. Because it's very flimsy and opaque, you'll find that it often jams inside your punch. And if it does punch, it doesn't punch clean. So what I like to do is I like to add it over a piece of cardstock. So since I want these both the same size, I'm going to play double duty here. I'm going to use my punch upside down so I can see where I'm going. Make sure I've got the whole inside filled, and then I'll punch them out. So now I've got those two pieces. I'm going to switch over now to a piece of Designer Series paper. This comes from the Subtles Assortment Designer Series paper stack, and I'm going to use the 2 1/4 inch circle punch this time. The designer paper, although thin, does punch extremely well. We've got our pieces, so now we're going to do our assembly. I like to lay out my pieces first to get an idea of where they're going to go. So I'm going to put my larger circle with the designer paper up here, and then I'll layer my Pear Pizzazz, and then finally I'll want my vellum here. So I've got a little bit of a focal point going on. I also know I'm going to add a strip with a greeting. So I'm going to lay this image on top just so I've got an idea on placement. I'm just going to slide that over very quickly, and I've got a piece of coordinating crumb cake cardstock here, and this is where I'm going to stamp the greeting. The greeting is coming from the More Than Words stamp set. This product is only available through March 31st while supplies last. You'll notice these framelits coordinate with the free products that we're offering during celebration. So if you choose to purchase one of these items, you can choose free selections from there when your order reaches $50. And again, as I've mentioned, if your order reaches $100, you'll be able to redeem even more. So here's the More Than Words stamp set here, and there is a brand new story label punch that fits the images that are inside this stamp set. I'll be using my Memento black ink pad for this, and I've mounted the words from that stamp set that say thanks for, and then you can build it, which is one of the great things about the stamp set. This one says jumping in. From the stamp set, you can see you can add hopping by, of course, lots of other phrases that can be built as well. Make sure you stick with me to the end of the video because I have another card sample to show you using that exact same stamp set. I'll go ahead and now ink up my greeting, and I'm looking to allow room for the jumping in. So I'm going to stamp this one over to the left side. I've got the second phrase that says jumping in, and I'll ink that up as well. And then I'm going to stamp right next to it. We're ready to do our assembly, so I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet. I absolutely love this because it's going to keep my work surface sticky free. Adhesive, glue, and even hot glue will not stick to here. It'll simply rub right off. I'm going to start with this image in the back first. So I'll go ahead and I'll pick that up, I'll flip that over, and I'll place adhesive on the back side. And then I'm going to slide that up underneath where I had wanted it. My next step is going to be my Pear Pizzazz circle, and I'll do the exact same thing with this one. And then I'll slip this one where I want it. Now with vellum, 9 times out of 10, the adhesive is going to show. I could use a little liquid glue on a sponge and sponge it on there. But I've got a better trick for you. We're actually going to hide the adhesive with the dimensionals that we're going to use to adhere the greeting. I'm going to align that vellum circle where I want it, and then I'm going to gauge where my greeting is going to fall. So I can see here, literally about the halfway point is where it's going to be hidden. So I'm going to slide that over, and right here at the halfway point, I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive just to tack this in place. Making sure that my adhesive is horizontal, I'll go ahead and I'll attach that here. The next step is going to be to add that die cut leaf. Because these areas are very narrow, I find that adhesive is difficult to use. So I'm going to use the multi-purpose liquid glue. I'd like to get it started here in my silicone craft sheet. And as I mentioned to you, as this dries, it'll become opaque and I can rub it right off. It will not stick to this. I need just a little bit. This glue is very strong, so I need just a little bit to tack it down. And then I'll place that on my card where I want it. And I'll just tack that in place. I'll hold it for just a couple seconds. It has a little bit of adhesion. And now I can come over to my greeting. And I'm going to turn that over, and I'm going to use dimensionals. And I know that these larger ones are going to fit well. So I'm going to center those dimensionals along that strip. You're going to find all the cutting dimensions down in the video description here below if you are here from YouTube. And then once I've got that ready to go, I'm looking for where that adhesive has been placed so that I can hide it. I have my base of my card, which is actually the same color. I've scored it ahead just before the video when you joined me. That's right in half. And then I'm going to use my bone folder for that nice crisp edge on my card. This layer, I want it to stand up, so I'm going to flip this over as well, and I'll be adding dimensionals to the back side. You're going to find that I use my dimensionals very generously. I'm aware that I'm going to be mailing the card, and I know it's going to go through that postage machine at the post office that has rollers in it. And it'll do a real number on sagging your card if you don't give it enough balance on the back end. And then I'll go ahead and I'll remove those dimensional backings. I'm going to center this over the card base, and then once I'm happy with its placement, I'll press that in place. My last step is to add a little bit of an embellishment. And I've pulled out the faceted dots, and you can see that I've really enjoyed these. I've used quite a few of them already. You have 4 colors on here. Blackberry Bliss and the black look very similar. If you're in person, you'll be able to delineate the difference a lot easier. But I decided to use these since they coordinate really, really well. Now I'm going to work with some of the smaller ones. I'm going to take my Take Your Pick pickup tool, and I'm going to come up underneath there. There's already glue dots on the back, which make these super easy to use. I have a little extra space on this end than I do here. Do you see it? So I'm going to go ahead and absorb that with one of those little embellishments. I'm going to take a smaller one now, and I'll add that here to my vellum. And then I've got one more that I'm going to add down here just for some visual interest. So there we go. We have our card. Isn't that simple? And just think of the different color palettes that you can use for this card. It would also make a great masculine card. Now I promised you one other project using that More Than Words stamp set, and here it is. I used the dot to dot embossing folder, which is featured in the Occasions catalog. The bravery and the adulting phrase are both from the More Than Words stamp set. I'll tell you what, I'm having so much fun with this because you can build and customize your cards. Another simple card and a great idea for the use of that stamp set. If you have enjoyed today's video, I would love it if you would click the thumbs up, which is the like button here on YouTube. It makes them and I very happy. And be sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the bell icon, which is right next to that subscribe button. That will give you notifications of when I upload a new video, as well as when I'm live here on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.